Stop. We are here.
Sorry, Johnny. Dang it. We started talking about David Goggins and exercise and all this shit. And all
We
of a sudden,
started talking about podcast stuff in the pre-sync up. And sometimes we get going and it's like, we should just hit record and go because
why aren't we talking about this?
we meet early to kind of warm up and reacquaint. And then we just start podcasting without podcasting. But here we are. There's actually so much going on in the world. It's crazy. Like,
what's happening?
Oh my God. Yeah, well, I mean, okay, so there's war.
Is there?
The perpetual war remains perpetual.
Yeah.
There's no backing out of what mess this is now. But, and so for me, just even as I might look at news and kind of keep it at a certain frame of fog of war and like what is going on, we are here live, I know. I really try not to get sucked into narratives. What the news will do is start to like inform yourself, and then you can get sucked into the strategies going on, or who is being bad, or who is doing what for potentially good. And I just have to, like, when I zoom out of it, that's when I was thinking of a title for this. Where I was going with it was, with all this stuff going on, let's just say war itself, let alone a lot of stuff going on, like politically, legislatively, even in crypto and the economy, and all these things are swirling because there's a lot of shit just kind of breaking or being funded how and what's going to come down. I was like, you know what? It reminds me of kind of I have this big heady feeling of things like I felt with, you might compare it to, weirdly, I would, 9/11 or the financial crisis or COVID. And now it feels like it's not just Ukraine anymore. It's like we are putting boots on the ground to take that island, Karg Island or whatever, or create a naval battle in Hormuz, or all these things. And to me, it feels like this heady tension that's just ready to pop. And it very well could. At the same time, compared to the other past big events, I feel less maybe wrapped up in a need for some hopeful outcome or fear of disaster. I'm a little more like, because of Bitcoin and our conversations and my frame of mind about it all, it's not that I'm detached. I just feel like, yeah, I have seen this movie before. It's the same old game. It could be as bad or worse than others. Good morning. So given all the swirling stuff going on and around, it's not that I don't want to be aware of what can be happening in the world, but ultimately what I'm doing better is just taking care of myself. I get up in the morning, I live my day and my life. I go to work, I do my things, and I'm like, life is pretty good for me, and not just superficially, but in the background, I feel like I am taking care of my future through an asset that I can hold that nobody can take. And so ultimately there's that. I just feel better. Yeah.
Oh yeah. Well, that's the funny thing. Like, now anymore, when I hear stuff like, oh my God, there's so much going on, I'm like, really? I haven't noticed, and I'm sort of purposefully doing that. I mean, there's actually like a bunch of neuroscience research about the effect of media on your prefrontal cortex, right? And they find that there was a study about, they call it right-wing authoritarianism, or the people that are most attracted to right-wing authoritarianism. I am already suspect of such a study because it's just singling out one side of authoritarianism. And it's like, the left is pretty authoritarian.
We've had our share of the left's authoritarian.
Yeah. So let's not just like start casting aspersions here without, like turning a mirror back on yourself. But, I mean, whatever. That's how these studies gain traction, right? Is they pick a side. But nevertheless, what they find is that people that have the high exposure to this kind of stuff tend to lean more into things that, like, they'll defer to authoritarianism. Um, and it's correlatable to their exposure to, like, media narratives, right? And the idea underneath it all was like, well, you are continually stressing and creating fear, and that goes straight to the amygdala, right? Like it bypasses that whole frontal cortex and goes right to the little animal part that goes, "Oh, we got a problem, we got to fight." And so that little bypass mechanism tends to soften the gray matter up here and focus all that energy back here. And so it works great for the advertising model, right? It was the Kargs from Star Trek.
I had to look that up because Karg
Yeah.
Island, I mean, yeah. So Iran, I guess, stores a whole bunch there and ships or pipelines out of there. And so if we put boots on the ground, we might just take Karg to start with.
Oh, yeah.
And Karg Island is an island off of Iran, up higher up in that strait or bay, and it's got a shit ton of oil on it. Anyway, so they're talking about taking Karg. I had to look that up. So what the heck? The Kargs. What? Evil from Masters of the Universe.
Oh,
anyway,
Star Trek, Masters of the Universe, whatever. It's all the same.
Karg is a mercenary serving Skeletor on Eternia. Oh, this is from He-Man stuff, huh?
Yeah.
Anyway, Kargs. There's pictures of Kargs.
But nevertheless, like when it comes to these media narratives and how they affect you, like, biochemically, I am coming to realize, like, it's really, really, really unhealthy just to look at any of this shit, right? Like, it's not even like, oh, I want to kind of keep up and just make sure that and then I'll turn it off after. It's like, no, just don't even open it to begin with, because none of it fucking matters anyway. Like if, like, Ukraine breaks out, you go, okay, I don't live in Ukraine, so I don't have to really pay attention to that. And people sort of reflexively get to, like, but don't you want to be informed? Don't you want to? I'm like, no, it doesn't fucking matter to me. Like, that doesn't, like, okay, great, I'm informed. What changed in my world? Well, I know this thing is happening. Okay, cool. What changes in my world? Well, this thing is happening. Right. So what changes in my world? Well, you can start preparing for something. What something should I be preparing for? World War III. Like, really?
The kings are going to extract harder and harder, as they always have for any reason or none at all.
For the last 12,000 years.
They will want you more legible, more umbilical cord tethered, and to be extracted from. They will continue to extract harder.
Yeah.
And anyway, yeah. So in my mind, economically, it could affect you as like I'm sorting out taxes recently. And as I pay taxes, it's like I can't think about where the money is going.
Yeah. It's going in somebody's pockets. I mean, but what Johnny just, like, Chase Hughes is great. Like, he came out with a great video. I can't remember what the topic was, but I mean, he's like a very sober voice, which I really appreciate about the guy. He's got some fascinating stuff about behavior and, interrogation and stuff like that. But I think his sort of political takes are kind of a mature voice, which I appreciate in that guy. Because I would say we're not even just in an era of disinformation. We're just in information. We're in an era of information vacuum. Like, there is no trustworthy source anywhere. You can't trust any of this shit, right? So what's becoming, I think, more important is, like, face-to-face communication. Apparently Gen Alpha is like one of these people is really, really super hardcore into, like, disconnecting from social media, and which you would they get the rep of being, like, totally absorbed by their phones or whatever, but they are trending towards a thing where they're like, they don't drink alcohol very much, and they don't bury themselves in, like, these social media things, and they're prioritizing things like face-to-face interaction. And I think that's, as a general rule, probably a healthy thing for everybody, So this isn't quite face to face. I mean, but it is the human interaction, right? We're not talking to a robot. We're not mediated. We're not, on a platform like that's separated in, from the time you type it to the time you react to it, kind of thing. So it's I think this is kind of the better way to start approaching information, is just go, hey, let's all sit around and talk about it, right? Like not like, oh, this is the narrative and now we should talk about the narrative. It's like, no, 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 just talking sort of bigger terms, right? Like, well, here is an narrative, here's another counter narrative, and what does it really mean for us locally? It's like, no, nothing. Oh, okay, cool. Then what should we focus on locally? Well, local problems, right? And my local situation. And what's happening in Iran or Ukraine or Russia or China, all that kind of stuff. You go, that's geopolitics. There are, 10,000 people in the world that matters for directly on a day-to-day basis. They have to be thinking about that all the time, 24 hours a day, because that's their job, right? For the rest of us, we just have to deal with whatever fuck ups they make in the process. But, but the conversation that's important, the important conversations around that, the important awareness of what's happening in those things is a very, very limited sphere of people that actually need to know any shit about this, right?
Yeah, and there's kind of a part of that war is a war for our attention and our time and our minds and where we put our energy. So there's like a capture game for just general attention and what side are you on? Care harder, vote harder, be captured by that kind of level of game. And like my son, I spent some time with who's finishing up college but had spring break, and I spent some time with my son this past weekend and week, and he's late end of, I guess you'd say, millennial, towards Gen Z, and he grew up through COVID and with screens and things, and he has, not through any like forced upbringing of mine, just kind of a little egalitarian, but loving and supportive. And he's a smart kid. He's navigated it a lot himself. Super smart. But I just noticed he has a really good balance with his phone time, his screen time, his attention. And he has just decided he's going to work in directions that are his and grow and learn, like engineering. And he's working in Alaska as a mountain guide. We were talking about our relationship with food or fitness and diet and exercise and all that stuff. And fairly much on his own, he has just navigated a lifestyle for himself where he really lives in like moderation. And I don't know how that occurred, because he'd be so easily caught up in stuff, but he doesn't. And so I guess there's some hope in the future for youth that they grew up with this show going on, and it's just like, I'm not into that show. What am I doing for me? Not that they're just self-absorbed, but just like beyond just coping, how do I live or even thrive? And they're just kind of walking away from the mainstream, or that's a mode, is anti-mainstream. So that's encouraging.
I think it's great, man, because it's like, well, I think it reflects on, a sort of old person bias that tends to recur through history, right? Like, these young kids are all screwed up in a mess, and blah, right? And that's like every generation says that about every generation. These kids today are such blah. When I was a kid, we did blah. Kids today are blah. And it's just like, yeah, well, they become the adults of tomorrow. And, like if you look at boomers, they got their heads shit on by their parents, right? And the boomers are,
shit on our heads.
they relentlessly shit on our heads. But they were a group, a cohort that came up in some really weird times, right? Like they were the first cohort to be mass programmed. So that's sort of a unique twist on them. Like, they grew up just like with their eyeballs glued to like very, very strictly curated narratives about, good guys and bad guys, and, and jingoistic norms about, America and this and that and the other thing. So they're very like, I mean, they are bear clear traces of what that kind of results in, right? But we are in a similar way. We grew up watching them be self-absorbed and just completely married to these narratives. And we also watched like this incredible transformation of sort of like information technology and potentials and all this kind of stuff. But we were the generation that just watched this trace from like the gold standard to like CBDCs and every single sort of weird iteration between. It's just like, wow, man, we went through some shit, you know?
Yeah.
But we're also that sort of generation that's kind of jaded by it all and a little disconnected from it all. And, you know, we have a certain stance about things as well, but we're also still vulnerable to a lot of the same things that affected our boomer parents that our next generation aren't necessarily absorbed by, you know? And so
Yeah.
millennials are kind of in that weird transition, but now Gen Z and Gen Alpha are starting to come up in a very different viewpoint of the world, because these are kids that were born like after 9/11. Like that's ancient history to them, you know? And
Yeah. Yeah. Pearl Harbor or something like, oh,
yeah,
this
exactly.
big thing happened, and now what? Things are different.
Yeah.
And why? Yeah. Anyway.
Yeah, we did grow up with trusted experts, yeah, or trusted news sources. But once you start stripping it all away and just realize like this is all narrative driven, everything is a narrative. It's all, there's some monetization at the base of all the stuff that we've been exposed to for the last 50 years. And in reality, there's been some form of monetization that goes back the last 100 years. So you kind of go, well, what is valid information when it's been, you know, sources of monetization, sources of power, sources of this, sources of that. And you go, man, it's sticky to unpack. And so I think, you know, as we mature as a species, I think these kind of conversations are more beneficial to mapping the terrain of the world than just like trusting, you know, whatever, some monetized biased thing.
It makes me more so reconsider and think about sort of like the plan B stuff. Continuing with, you know, my Bitcoin development, humble stacking, having maintaining a sense of personal agency, options in life, directions that could be, and how that would happen. And I look at the landscape of, say, the Tournament of Kings stuff going on, and what is going on there, and like, oh boy, there's a quagmire now. We're stuck with what? I imagine a potential like a crazy worse outcome where like a kind of emergency that then hits people at home where they feel like we're being faced with decisions to make about falling in line or really walking away, but you have to do so deliberately. So let's just say it's a huge quagmire now. It involves big powers in the background, China and Russia and oil. I mean, there's that concept of the petrodollar, but like, how is oil traded? And there's a fight for what paper money moves the oil and stimulates economies and all this stuff. So there's like the petrodollar. There's a fight for the perhaps petro yuan sort of thing. And let's just say, okay, Israel is in a bad spot. They can get reached and touched as they are. Like Israel's getting touched sort of steadily. And it's like, oh, this wasn't a shock and awe move in and they have we pop Israel and we're done. That was a nice cleanup. Now it's a mess. And they're being backed by Russia and China, say. Let's say Israel gets desperate, and let's just say nukes get involved. Like Israel's got nukes, and they decide for reasons like they're going to pop one off and show some strength. So you get one that starts, and then Russia, supposedly stories of Russia being willing to support Iran with something, or let's just say bigger bombs get involved. Iran gets hit, Israel gets hit, and then who knows what else. Things that happen domestically in the U.S. start to pop. And so then it feels more of a personal, like we're being attacked. This is now global. This is World War III. And so the idea of people like us continuing to function and live healthily with this closer backdrop of a feeling of World War III. Now we've seen that movie as well before, but thinking of, okay, what to do then, pleb? It goes back to, I was thinking about like guidance that I would give my son or my kids or people generally, like life advice for navigating um, that whole game, and staying centered and doing what you can do for you. It's very much like things that I hear about with Plan B, or things that the Bitcoin Way talks about, or um, focusing hard on your time and your energy. I was thinking of something called like based thriving change, like being willing to change, BTC, being willing to stay based, focus on your time and energy so that you thrive and grow and navigate opportunities, perpetual like opportunities in your world, but perpetually not being stuck, ever stuck. Change, being willing to navigate and change and not get caught up anywhere, but like focus on yourself, your community, your craft, and your personal agency, and just
Huh.
being having a stronger foundation.
Yeah.
I don't
Well, I
know.
mean, in terms of like the what ifs, like we could what if everything always at all times, And I think that's, there's an allure to it to kind of go like, well, I want to be prepared, right? But it's like through all that, like for years and years and years, I was by all accounts a prepper, right? Like I had like, 50 gallons of fresh water on hand at all times. I had tons of ammo stacked up. I was like ready, for what if. And what gradually happened was like, hey, I lost a very lucrative job right before the financial crisis, and then my whole financial world collapsed right alongside that loss of income. And so I had my own little mini financial crisis about 2 years before the actual financial crisis. So by the time the financial crisis had come around, like all that prepping was like sort of out the window because the local problem overrode that massively, right? It was like, well, I need to hang on to my water, but I can't afford my house. So, what do I hang on to here? Do I still want to move my 50 gallons of water and my literal 1 ton of ammunition around? Or do I want to like liquidate some of this shit and make it so I can actually move and then find something I can actually afford? Well, all of that preparation just went out the window. And the thing that I was worried about never manifested anyway. So it was sort of like, okay, I was prepared for a maybe in some far off circumstance that God only knows if it happens. And then when COVID hit, you kind of go, oh, well, no one was thinking about this. Like who was prepped for COVID, right? Like you're going to be locked down for anywhere from like 30 days to 2 years, and you can't work and you can't do this and you can't do that. Like how many people were prepped for that? Like they're prepped for like nuclear holocaust. And then when COVID hit, they go, oh, well, this kind of screws up some of my, I mean, like I still have all the food for the nuclear thing, but should I use it? Because the nuclear thing might still be coming, but I've got this COVID thing now. And, so you can kind of drive yourself into a weird ravine where you're just like, okay, I'm prepared for all these things, but it's like a Maginot line. You just go, we're prepared for the thing that I'm thinking about. Okay, cool. What about all the things you didn't think about? Oh, I'm not prepared for any of that shit. Oh, okay. So what was the value in preparing? Well, I was prepared for the one thing that didn't ever manifest, never came around. And I was completely unprepared for all the other stuff that happened behind that. So, like what value did I extract from spending all my time ruminating and worrying and thinking through all these hypothetical problems that didn't really manifest? Well, it was probably fun. You probably found a little community of other people that were like you and kind of, and you got to have a little tribal moment of like, yeah, we know what's coming and but you still ended up flat footed when the chips hit the ground. And that's like I had a buddy who was storing up all kinds of ammo during COVID. He was running around and he had a little circuit around Portland where he was just going to all these different shops because he knew the day that their ammo showed up, but they were limiting stock, right? So he would just hit one, get 50 rounds, hit another, get 50 rounds, hit another, hit another. He was paying a massive premium for all this stuff. And I'm like, you realize that you have now managed to acquire enough ammunition to survive one minor engagement. Like you've got, like if you look at the actual rounds expended during like a firefight or whatever, like it dwarfs everything that you've got stored up. So you've got enough for one fight. Cool. Then what? Like not only have you pointed out that you have this ammo and you've got this capability, so the next time someone wants to come hassle you, they'd better just bring more people. That's, the easiest way to overrun you. Or they just wait until you're asleep, or they just wait until this, or they just wait until you're taking a dump, or they just wait until, there's like a million ways to get around the fact that you've got 10,000 rounds of 9mm and a handgun and a little barricade that you can stand behind. So it's like this guy devoted all kinds of time and effort to creating his little circuit about like, I'm going to go to all the buy marts and pick up 50 rounds of ammo at 10 different stores, so I can save up enough ammo to survive one fight that will probably never manifest. Or he could have been doing things that were like, well, you could just be like focusing on your health, making sure that you're reducing your reliance on medications, make sure that you are able to be agile and mobile if something does happen, that you're not dependent on a bunch of other structures to make your life livable, that things like that. So if you get what I'm saying here, there's like a lot of like drift that can come just from what ifing.
Yeah, and even if it's in a way, maybe it's good to get a little bit off zero there. Like, okay, you can do some of that, but you don't just fixate on the one thing that you can do. It's kind of big picture where, like you said, the core foundational stuff. I imagine a lot of people can imagine the ways they might survive a zombie apocalypse stuff and have a citadel somewhere, and yet they're stuck right in Seattle or some big city or something where more fundamentally, more broadly, it'd be the harder changes where you're tethered in with maybe it's a job or your house or things like that, where fundamentally there's things that if things got really bad at that level, you just shouldn't be in the Puget Sound anywhere. Or I don't know.
Well, but that's what I'm getting at is like when these things go sideways, they don't go sideways all at once. Like it's not like one day everything in Seattle is fine and then the next day it's not a movie, right? And like if you look at what happened in Poland with the Warsaw ghettos, if you look at like any time an occupying force comes in, anytime there's mass destruction and chaos, even in all the cities that were getting carpet bombed in World War II and all that kind of stuff, this was not like just in some cases those were rapid changes, right? Like, but you could see it building, you could see it coming, and you could see some of these things happening, but they become normalized because the pace of change is slow enough that you end up in a new normal every single time, right? It's not like there's just one day you wake up and you go, aha, the fight's on, let's go. It's like, oh, this got a little weird. Oh, well, gas is a little more expensive. Oh, the shelf is a little empty on toilet paper. Oh, this. And it's not until you look back and you go, oh my God, my new reality is very different than it was 3 years ago, but I didn't really notice except for the fact that now I'm sitting here and just I have enough time to think about and contemplate what's changed. And so all those preps you've made along the way of like, oh, I saved up water and I did this and that and the other thing, like by the time you realize how magnificent the change might have become, all that shit's gone. Like you've already burned through all that. All that stuff's already been mitigated. All that stuff has already been deployed. And now you're in the actual new reality that didn't show up all at once that you could be prepared for. It shows up 3 or 4 years later because of a grind that got you to a place where you're now in a very different setting than what you were planning for years earlier, right?
Yeah.
So like, and that's what I was saying is like the guy that's going to have the easiest time in the apocalypse is the dude that lives on the street with all his shit in a backpack, because he's going to be like, oh yeah, this
he's got
changes.
some decent cardio.
He's got endurance. He can handle suffering. He knows how to scrounge and to pluck value out of nothing. He knows how to keep going and endure, right? Whereas if you're like me or you, or, we're kind of fat and happy and just sitting in a nice, comfortable, it's air conditioned, all this kind of stuff. If you're suddenly thrust into homeless tomorrow, like you've got a learning curve, right? But if you are gradually thrust into like, oh, everything sucks, we have to stand in line for food, there is no gas, employment is just not a thing anymore. Most of the infrastructure is crumbling. We can't rely on electricity, yada, yada, yada. Like that's not going to happen overnight. And by the time it does happen, you're going to be very adapted to it in a very, very different way. But it's not going to be because you had, a year's worth of canned food in a fucking pit in your backyard, right? The likelihood of you still having a backyard at that point is pretty much gone. The likelihood of you being able to just skirt off to fucking El Salvador is pretty much gone. your likelihood of all manner of things are kind of out the window. But if you are a guy that could just live off your backpack and you've got a little Bitcoin, your world is still pretty wide open. Like you can kind of get through a lot of this stuff just by walking somewhere. But if you're tied to a bunch of like material things and material ideas and material reliances and material dependencies, like that shift is going to be really, really, really difficult to deal with, right?
Yeah.
So that's why I'm sort of like I've always since that time, since that prepping mentality sort of escaped me, and since the financial crisis and COVID and all that kind of stuff, like I've tried desperately to keep my life oriented around something where it's like, well, at any given moment, I can put everything that matters to me in a car and I can just drive away. And if it got really boiled down, I could put the most critical things into a backpack and I could just go away. And nothing would fundamentally change for my day to day reality. I'd be like, okay, I still have access to a handful of things that make my existence matter, and the rest of it is sort of disposable. It's like, oh, well, that's gone. So what? This is gone. So what? This is gone. So what? This is gone. So what? I can live without any of that stuff. And I've done it before. So I've already done the work of like, okay, how minimal can I get? And now I can see like, oh, okay, if this happens, I'm okay because I can just walk somewhere. If this happens, I'm okay because I can just walk somewhere. If this happens, I'm okay because I can just walk somewhere. Like there's, so it's not so much like cutting yourself off as it is just cutting dependency. And like the self-sufficiency, I don't think comes from like being able to retain your lifestyle and then have a bunch of shit that buffers retaining your lifestyle. I think it's more about like how flexible can you be under pressure is the orientation I trend towards more, which is why I love Bitcoin, because it lets you take an asset anywhere in the world at any time, and no one can just bonk you on the head and steal it. They don't even know you have it, right? So that's why that's such a huge thing. If we start talking about what ifs, you kind of go, well, my what if is like, well, what if, as long as I don't get smoked, in an airstrike, I've got options. Like if I were in Gaza or whatever, it's kind of like, well, I could probably navigate this. It wouldn't be pleasant. And your likelihood of getting smoked in an airstrike was pretty high in Gaza. But when you see that coming, it'd be like, oh, okay, well, I can put my backpack on. I can walk across the border to Jordan or whatever. I can say, oh, I'm here for work and, show my papers and do all the things. But you have to have all those things in place in order to do that, right? Like if you've been like, oh, I'm not going to let the state see me and I'm not going to be on the radar. I'm not going to this. I'm not going to that. It's like, okay, well, try and cross the border now. Oh shit, now I got to dig a tunnel and I got to fucking, it's like if you're already part of the system, you're already legible to the system and there's already a plausible reason for you to be moving. It makes that movement a lot easier. But if you've already like isolated yourself from state observation, it makes it introduces a lot of friction around that kind of movement. So in the Gaza example, if it were me right now and I go, oh, Israel's dropping bombs on our heads all the time. My neighbors just got blown up. I don't think I should be here anymore. I'm going to take all my legibility, all my state awareness, and I'm going to use that as a vehicle to get me somewhere where I can just kind of keep walking, And when I get to the next place, it can be like, oh, I'm here for reasons that are state legible and are state coherent. And then you're going to go, okay, and then I'm just going to keep on walking. And you keep on walking until you can find somewhere where you can resettle and reestablish and sort of ground yourself again and find an anchor. But if you're already tied to infrastructure or you're already separated from state legibility, you end up in this really bad sort of situation in both cases. And that's, I think, the smarter plan B if anyone was asking.
Yeah, at least people are thinking about plan B type stuff. I think more and more people are really thinking about it at a more fundamental level. We're trying to apply their time and energy. I mean, now this is probably a slim majority. It's kind of like how many people actually self-custody Bitcoin, how many people are actually thinking fundamentally about plan B type stuff. Now, authentically, without the access to the right info or having time in that structure, yeah, not a lot. But I mean, so like for one example, just thinking like Michael Jordan on the Bitcoin Way, he's been having Tony on a lot more regularly, like for like at least a weekly live stream where Tony goes on his story and informational journeys and perspective. because a lot of people ask questions or like, what about this and what about that? What do you think of this and that? And Tony is good at zooming out and putting it all in like a good perspective. And I see that really resonate. Like it's obviously gotten traction, so they're doing that kind of show more.
Mm-hmm.
I personally like it. I enjoy it. And it like I'll get caught up in things and then I'll listen to that or I'll talk to you and it's like, oh yeah, yeah. Get grounded again with the big picture. What does get hard for a lot of people when you think of like entanglements or things that you keep in your life, it is hard when you have, speaking as a guy, you have a wife who is um, supportive perhaps, but like not ready or willing, or you have kids, even like a particularly young kids, and they're, what is that going to mean to them, or how, you know, doing all the things with kids in tow, man, it starts to get kind of tricky. Um, but maybe it's like, okay, we're going to start having the conversations, thinking about it, working towards stuff, and at least not reacting to panic, but being like, okay, we still have a compass here, we have directions. I'm in one sense, I think, well, if you're say you're in a situation where you're very urban or you have entanglements or things, whatever, maybe the direction is get more rural. Look at your community. Kind of what community are you in, and how does this all look under big paradigm shifts or big changes, hardship? How does all this look? You know, maybe is this where we should be? I don't know.
Well, there's not even rural anymore, especially in America. Like rural used to mean like relatively self-sufficient homesteads, right? Today it is not. Like it is a sort of weird hybrid, but most of those little homesteads are now reliant on the Dollar General and the local grocery store and
Yeah.
Costco and Amazon. And, so they're not, these are not like self-sufficient communities where you just go, okay, well, everything's gone to hell in the world. Let's all band together and you do some farming and I'll do some gardening and you'll do some this and I'll do some that. Like that sort of age is gone, right? And it's easy to romanticize and think, oh yeah, well, this is like, if you're Amish, you've got that, right? But if you're not Amish, you're not living in that world at all. And even they are becoming more and more tied to the bigger world in some ways, like in financial ways, and the way they're financializing their craft and things like that. But in terms of like a self-sufficiency kind of a group where you could look at and go, okay, who has that true rural community? It's the Amish. They would probably do just fine regardless of external circumstances, provided no state agent just came in and rounded them up and moved them off somewhere, which historically speaking is more common than not, right? So if you got urban entanglements, the likelihood, if you want to get into a what if situation, like that can range anything from you've been locked down in your house, which nobody did anything about. Like nobody was like, aha, I'm moving on. I'm going out to the blah. I'm doing this. I'm doing that. Like, no, they just sat where they were and they just did what they were told. So there were people that would go out and bitch about it, but that's not doing anything about it, and there were people that would like resist, some mandate or something, but that didn't mean they fixed their world. And some people did move and quit jobs and whatnot, but it wasn't, but all of it is predicated on this idea that like, hey, I get to keep all my creature comforts and I just don't have to deal with the bigger problems. And that's sort of that, like, how are we preparing for this? Or like my plan B is I'm going to recreate my middle class life in Panama, or my plan B is that like I'm going to have, XYZ. And it's like, if you want to hang on to a construct that occurs because of the very thing that you're worried about collapsing, then the idea of like, well, I want to hang on to the thing that got created by the thing I'm worried about collapsing becomes a little less tenuous to hang on to as a thought, right? Like you go, oh, well, I want my car and I want my, Netflix and I want Amazon and I want to be able to get, caramel popcorn delivered by 5 p.m. the next day. And I want to get this and this and this and this. And I want fresh water and I want medical care and I want my medicine and I want my CPAP and I want my this and I want that. And I just want to be sure I can preserve all of that when the entire system that makes that possible collapses. And you go, what do you not see the disconnect there? Like all those things exist because of the thing that you're worried about. So if the thing that you're worried about actually does collapse, and all of that stuff evaporates, it's not like I get to preserve it by moving, or I get to preserve it by this, or I get to preserve it by that. It's like your whole structure is gone.
Yeah.
So if you're going to plan on something, you have to first be able to know that you have a means to exist without that structure to begin with, which is why I say the homeless guys got a leg up on everybody in this situation, because they are already existing outside of that structure. They are already parasitic on that structure, but not reliant on that structure, right? So it it's just a very different way of looking at things that isn't intuitive if you are currently embroiled in a mindset of like what the world should look like. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and I think about one huge way that a lot of people,
Exactly, Tony.
yeah, it's hard. The way many people, many retired folks are very reliant on Social Security, and somewhat recently, it was actually one of James Hickman's recent articles about Social Security, where basically there was a committee hearing. What was it? A Senate committee hearing, Senate Budget Committee. They had a hearing on Social Security solvency. Like basically, Social Security right now is good for about 6 years.
Yeah.
Like they will be broke short of some things. So they have a kind of like an emergency hearing. It's sort of like the long emergency, but they're like, what are we going to do? You know, people put in a lot into it and then don't get as much out, but they need it. And so this was funny. I wanted to play this where they have this committee hearing to figure out what to do, and they're talking about some new side, pool of money that they're going to tie to markets and grow with like a 401k and all the things. This
Hey,
was
thanks,
funny.
Sorry, it's Daniel at Daniel21E as in Edward 15. Daniel21E15 on Twitter. Or you can check us out at MicroSeed. That's where I post most of the time. It's microseed_.io. But thanks for joining us.
Daniel 21E15. Actually, let me I could post that. Hold on a sec. There you are. I was going to copy and paste it. I'll
Sorry to
paste
interrupt, Fritz. Like, please play the video though.
Yeah. So, okay, this was funny. Watch the cameraman. Oh, I guess it's obvious in the video. Watch the cameraman. This is like one senator's solution to Social Security ultimately failing. So here.
This new fund would be separate from the Social Security Trust Fund. It would be pre-funded with $1.5 trillion and invested in the way that your 401k is invested. And it's held in escrow over 75 years, allowing the internal rate of return. As it does this, the balance in the escrow account can offset any borrowing required to pay scheduled benefits. So we know the borrowing is most likely going to occur.
I thought that was so funny. Anyway, yeah.
Well,
how do we?
But see, that's what I'm kind of getting at is like, sorry to interrupt, but like, even with that, because I saw that same newsletter thing from Hickman, I think he's kind of a funny guy. I mean, he's very polarizing and whatnot. And, he tends to like lean into stuff that's sort of like a little, well, I mean, it's polar, right? But
yeah,
when it comes to the Social Security thing, like I go, well, I mean, that's going to run out of money allegedly right at the time I'm supposed to retire. And I've been saying that for like the last 20 years. I go, I'm already planning on like, I'll probably need to take a 30 or 40% haircut on whatever it is I was promised, just because the reality, like that's where else is this going to go? Right. So, but when it comes time to that solution, like it's not as if everyone just goes, well, it's bankrupt. I guess there's just nothing we can do. Everyone's going to suffer. We're all going to get voted out of office, and all the old people are going to starve and die. So, oops, sorry guys. Like that's just not how politics works, right? And like in the financial crisis, like there are rules in place that go, you can't do this, you can't do that, you can't do this, you shouldn't do this, this should never happen, this should never happen. And then as soon as it became apparent, like, oh, the whole system is going to collapse probably this week if we don't do something, they did something. They didn't just sit on their hands. They didn't just go like, well, the Constitution says we're not allowed to do blah, blah, blah. So I guess we're just going to just watch it all burn down. Like they don't. They just go, oh, there's a rule in the way. Well, how about just like ignore that because what are we going to let the whole financial system of the globe collapse because there's a rule that says we're not allowed to, fund liquidity, or we're not allowed to change the backstop, or we're not allowed to do this, or because the voting public is going to get pissed that we just gave, $300 billion to a bunch of bankers that made a shitty bet. Like, all that went out the window. That was not a calculus. That was not, they just, there's some guy in the room was like, hey guys, this is against the rules. And he got thrown out of the room in 2 seconds. Like, we don't need any of your input. You can GFY right now. Like, we've got a big problem here. And you standing there on principles is just getting in the way. So goodbye, Tom. And then they came up with a solution. They did a thing that went, okay, this is how we're going to fix this. You got screwed in the end, but they screwed you in a way that you didn't feel for a few years, right? So, I mean, it was acute in the moment, but it was 2 years after, everyone's just like, oh, well, it's just kind of back to the way, and there were like isolated groups that suffered, and continue to suffer. And like I often say, if you go to any airport parking lot and go to the Uber lot and just look at how many 45 to 50-year-old faces are behind those wheels, or 60-year-old faces, or 70-year-old faces, they're not out there, hacking cabs because they want to be sitting in a car for 12 hours a day. They're doing it because they don't have any other options and they need money. So that's the knock-on effect that happens like 5 years later, 10 years later. But that's exactly what I was talking about before, is like the event isn't the thing that changes your life. It's what follows from the event is the thing that you're going to come to realize 5 years later, like, oh, this is the new normal. I was prepared for, the collapse. But the first year after the collapse, all my preparation got exhausted. And now I'm in this slow grind towards like whatever the reality is going to be because of the decisions this handful of people made. And now I have to adapt to that. So everyone prepares for the event. They never prepare for like what happens after the event 5 years later, because you can't. It's impossible to say, oh, what they're going to do here with Social Security is they're going to massively inflate the money supply and they're going to do XYZ thing. So I need to prepare for that. You go, well, if they do that and if they follow that path, but these are smart people. They're not a bunch of baboons. They're going to come up with something that's going to work for them, work for the system, and probably end up screwing you some way that you're not going to notice for another 5 or 10 years. But by the time you realize it, whatever you've prepared for has already gone out the window.
Mm-hmm.
So if you strip all of this artifice away, and if you strip away everything, you go, what is a kind of the closest thing to a universal constant I can come up with? And you go, well, historically speaking, if you have property that you can exclude others from, that is a good buffer against all kinds of calamity. There's a war going on, but you got a bag full of gold and you can keep other people from knowing about it or stealing it from you, you're doing pretty good. If there was a feudal lord was moving into the area, or the two feudal lords got into a big fight and the one beat the other, and now you're under a new feudal lord, but this new feudal lord is kind of an asshole, but you got a bag of gold they don't know about and you can carry with you and not get caught with, that's pretty good. If you had land in another feudal lord's tenement or whatever, and you could move to that, that was pretty good. So if you had an asset that was yours, that's, you kind of go, okay, if everything, I can't predict what the conditions are going to look like. I can't predict like how they're going to manage whatever new conditions emerge from whatever shitty solution they came up to for whatever shitty problem they created. But what I can know is like at the end of this, chances are good that if I have property that I can exclude others from and it's valuable, that's going to help me get established in whatever the new normal is.
Yeah.
And you go, well, what's the best property you can possibly own right now that's the easiest to exclude others from taking from you, and the one that you can plausibly get without anybody knowing that you have by getting non-KYC Bitcoin? You go, what is that property? Bitcoin. You go, okay, well, calamity might come. Nuclear war might come. I might get zapped in a nuclear war. Won't matter. But if I don't get zapped in a nuclear war, or if it isn't nuclear war, or if it is a slow grind, or if it is a massive inflation event, or it is a CBDC, or it is a this, or it is a that, or any number of things that can unfold that we won't know, you go, well, if I have Bitcoin, chances are good I'm going to be in a better position than not having Bitcoin. So maybe I should get some Bitcoin, and maybe I should take self-custody of it, and maybe I should make sure that it's not KYC'd. So you put those factors together and you go, well, you can prep for a lot of things. You can store up water, you can save your antibiotics, you can do this, you can do that. And you go, but that can never take into account all the variability and all the variance that's going to come from a shitty problem created by shitty thinking that creates a new shitty problem that has a new shitty fix that's going to cause new shitty problems 5 or 10 years from now, right? Like how you plan for that is like impossible. But having a core and going, well, all things equal, I know that if I am not like so unhealthy that I need diabetes medication all the time, and I know that I'm not so obese that I can't like stand up if I fall down or I need someone to help me, and I know that if I'm not so obese that I need a CPAP machine every night, but I can instead get healthy. And if you can start taking care of the core human needs and isolate that as like, A, it's something you can focus on. B, it's something you can pay attention to. C, it's something you can influence immediately tomorrow.
Sorry, Travis just says shout out to diabetes.
Diabetes. What's up, Travis? But you see what I'm saying? So you lock that shit in first, and then you make sure that you have access to property that can't be taken from you. And you got 2 pillars right here that you go, oh my God, I went to work today and then someone blew up my house. Oh, that was not great. Huh. Well, they blew up a bunch of houses on the block. There's a bunch of people going to a camp. I'm not going there. Like maybe I'll hang out in the camp for a few days, kind of get the lay of the land, and then start figuring out ways to exit that particular shitty situation.
You got your bug out bag, and by golly, you're healthy enough to hike to Panama.
Right. If need be.
Or El Salvador, it's closer.
Well, you don't even need, all you got to do is just hike somewhere where no one else is. Like, you know what I mean? And you just kind of go, well, we're going to sit here for a minute and try and figure out what's going on in the world and see what's going to start stabilizing first. And then we'll go there. Because maybe you go to Panama and all of a sudden Panama is like, becomes something you didn't expect it to be, because you don't know the rules down there any better than you know the rules here. Right. So, and then you're talking about foreign languages and this and that, and what kind of restrictions they're going to throw up and what they're going to expect of you before you come in. And, I've got residency. I've got all these pieces of paper that say I have rights to do things. And they go, well, all that's gone now because your country did XYZ thing. So I'm glad you got your plan B and you thought you were going to just use us as a little base to like rebuild your life and live in the, and sip Mai Tais all day, but that's not happening, dude. Go GFY. And you're like, oh, but I planned for an outcome that manifested very differently than what I thought. So now what? Flexibility is key, but core survival needs are the priority. Like, fix your body, fix your mind, and then have some property in self-custody, Bitcoin.
And Bitcoin is that citadel you can carry with you in your mind. Abe says he will live inside his Bitcoin, and
there you go.
Your Bitcoin shall live inside of you as well.
Yeah.
It's a symbiosis that's just brilliant. And it's that escape. It's more than an escape. It's just that foundation that you can simply have and play a different game. I do imagine what, things that happen, whatever. I feel like, okay, let's say things were really bad. I'd want to know a good farmer. I'd want to know people in my life or a community that can function where, I'm not going to like hang out and just run away and sit on their beach. I'll be like, okay, lifestyle change. I'm going to participate in a community, something different, maybe you move, whatever, but like start applying your skills or your efforts to help a community that has some grounding. I don't know.
Yeah.
That's where my mind goes.
I mean, it's understandable. And the thing is my bigger point is like, it doesn't do you any good whatsoever, in my opinion, to prepare for a what if, because you can what if yourself into all kinds of crazy things. What does make a lot of sense is like, to me anyway, is to go, well, can I like sit in a squat for 30 minutes? Yeah, no problem. If I fall down and trip, can I arrest the fall and prevent myself from becoming seriously injured? Yeah, sure. Could I walk 20 miles tomorrow without collapsing in the desert because I didn't have my pills or my, glucose pack or whatever? Yeah. Okay. Well, those are all very powerful things to have internalized already, right? You go, can you prepare for that? Yeah, sure. You can just exercise every day. You can just stretch. You can just make sure that you're eating right. You can make sure that you're putting your body under pressure and stress. So the transition isn't like immediate from like a sedentary couch potato to like survival mode, right? And can I hold property in self-custody? Yes, I can. That's very easy to do today. Thank God for Bitcoin. So you go, well, I can get those two things kind of squared away as best I can. Like, I don't have to be super athlete. I don't have to be David Goggins. I don't have to be some sort of crazy thing, but I just need to be at a place where the ramp to whatever new reality is coming is a shallower ramp than from here to here. It's the same thing as basic training. They don't put a gun in your hand when you show up at Army boot camp or Marine boot camp or whatever. The first thing they have you do is they just smoke you, right? They just go, okay, we're doing mountain climbers and we're doing burpees and we're doing push-ups and we're doing pull-ups and we're going to run you around obstacle courses. And it's all to get you to a place, because by the time you actually hit combat, those strains are going to be 10 times higher. And you're going to be sleep deprived. You're going to be under pressure all the time. There's going to be a lot of physical demands on you. But if they take you from couch potato and throw you in that, most of them are going to die. If they take you from like couch potato to like, okay, you're a functional, fit human being, then they throw you into it. They know your adaptation window is going to be much shorter. It's going to be tolerable, and it's going to be something you can ramp and adjust to on the fly in combat, in theater, right? So I say, as a human being in general, you should probably start ramping yourself. Not that you got to go boot camp mode and go crazy about it, but get yourself to a place where when the new reality happens, whatever that looks like, you're not flat-footed. You can go, oh, I just need to go from here to here. That's not so bad. But if you're starting way down here under conditions of dependency and need and ongoing need and ongoing dependency, and then you have to ramp to like fully independent and fully self-sufficient and fully capable, that's a huge ramp. And the likelihood of you getting through that without getting caught up or sucked into something in some intermediate step that you don't want to be part of, like a FEMA camp or something like that, goes way up. But if you're already here, you can kind of go, well, I can just, I've got options. And it's all about optionality. It's not about I'm prepared for one outcome. It's like I am capable of handling many outcomes because I am personally capable, if that makes sense.
Yeah, and so much of that military boot camp breakdown and build up it's psychological, surely, but it's very physical. It's like, you kids that maybe you were on the football team, sure, but whatever, you're coming out of high school and we're going to be running 5 miles every day, or now we're going to be hiking this and that and the other with a 50-pound pack. Or
right
now, I've not been to Bitcoin or to a boot camp. I'm going through Bitcoin boot camp, but I've not been to anything in the military. But you hear so many stories where the biggest thing about it is simply, from all walks of life, yeah, they're gonna forge you out of a fire, and that's going to be a lot of physical fitness. Academies are like that. I mean, I've been to several law enforcement academies, and just every morning at 6 a.m., day after day, it's just, you start your days out with an hour or two of various exercise, and it starts out hard, and then after a while, you're like, I'm fine. Actually, now I'm like awake.
Yeah.
And and you come out of an academy feeling like best shape of your life, sort of.
Yeah.
And ready for.
Yeah. I mean, I've been through the similar academy setting, and it's like, but those are, part of the law enforcement orientation of it is it's rooted in a cultural thing. It goes back to the 1930s. I won't bore you with the details, but it was sort of a militarization of police forces, because police used to be really like ragged, right? Like the way they would hire people is like, well, you're big and strong. You could probably kick someone's ass. You'll do great. Come on in, Tom. You're a little scrawny dude. Like, you in the 1930s would have never been a cop. Like, they would just go, nope, you're disqualified.
You're too scrawny. Nope.
You're too scrawny. I would have been disqualified too. They'd be like, well, you're kind of tall, but unless you got some real like crazy fighting skills we can't see right now, I would have had to prove myself. And I probably wouldn't have passed the bar. They wanted a literal meathead, right? But that came with its own problems. Like, oftentimes the cops were more of a problem than the criminals they were supposed to be apprehending. So they professionalized the force, and they adopted military training and strategies and ideas. But the problem is like, the military physical readiness comes from a very different need, right? But the thing is, like, if you look at special forces training, in particular, like Navy SEALs or Army Rangers or whatever it is, they put you through this phase, 2 or 3 weeks, like Hell Week, I think, is Buds. But they put you under extreme conditions of extreme stress, sleep deprivation, to test your resolve under high pressure. But what they're doing is they're simulating actual combat conditions, right? And that's the difference between basic training and specialized warfare training. Is they elevate the amount of readiness based on the training protocol, because they've seen the kind of people that can survive combat and thrive after they've gone through the gauntlet, right? And especially under extreme combat. But most people that go to combat don't end up in those extreme environments. They end up, in some support role, or they might engage in a couple of fights here and there. But for the most part, it's just like a lot of boredom and a lot of just sitting around. But there are units that would go out and they'd be in active combat all the time, and they'd be under intense deprivation, and they'd be under siege for like weeks at a time. And and so they try and emulate that, because that's the extreme end of the environment, but that's also where special forces are going to be operating. So they go, we need to filter these guys out right now. We can't wait to see if they survive the gauntlet. We need to eliminate those people right out of the gate. But they're giving you the simulated experience, right? And so if you watch that first Russian fight on Ukrainian soil, you saw exactly the same thing unfold. If you saw the Yugoslavian conflict, you saw the exact same thing unfold. The people that were exposed to routine combat and the people that rose up and became capable of fighting those fights and staying relevant in those fights are the same people that survived a similar gauntlet as special forces inoculate you against right out of training.
Mm-hmm.
But what I'm getting at is like that physical readiness is more important, is a broad scope. Like it should be treated as a baseline, I think personally, some sort of functional baseline. You don't have to be combat ready where you're like sleep deprived and you only sleep 45 minutes a day for the first 5 days, and you're lifting boats above your head and doing all this crazy shit and sleeping in the surf and freezing to death. That will certainly make you rugged. It'll certainly show you like what your limits are, what your capabilities are, what you can actually endure. But you're going to come to that if you end up in a shitty situation anyway. And whether you make it through or not is going to come down to the very same things that would have determined whether or not you made it through that training. And a lot of it's going to be luck. But you still need the baseline to get to the place where you could show up for that training to begin, if that makes sense, right? And that's what I'm talking about. That physical readiness, I think, is more important than, like material readiness of I've got ammo, I've got food, I've got, canned goods, I've got a bunker, I've got a this or I've got a that. Like if you don't have the physical readiness, the rest of that stuff is just a luxury. If you have physical readiness, the rest of that stuff is still just a luxury, but it's a luxury you can walk away from,
Yeah, I think of that preparation. Yeah, you got to be like that bodyguard brute guy, the brute squad. But so much what people can do to prepare is almost like simple fundamentals that mean shifting gears and being active. We were talking about that offline. I mean, thinking about aging parents, my family in things that I'm doing and making efforts towards. And it's not that I'm doing the David Goggins craziness, but it's shifting a gear and making it more play and incorporating it versus push and
exactly
fighting hard. And then there's an aspect to that. It's very mentally involved where like certain careers you might have or events that happen. You've been through an academy, you've been through a boot camp or whatever. Imagine a parallel situation where, okay, calamity occurs and how do people react and scramble and feel like insecure about it? It'd be like a parallel being, how do you react when you're walking down the street or in a situation, you're at a restaurant, you're at a bar, and you see two guys get in a fight. Two guys are fighting in front of you, and it's a big fight. And people do all kinds of different things, like freak out or get their phones out and kind of just document it or whatever. And things like that pop, and people can react like, because you're not familiar with it. You've never seen that before. It's dramatic. It's scary. What could happen? And you see people like somebody do something or they freak out. And after like various life experience and training and things that I've dealt with, it's weirdly, you can sit and observe it and take it in and just kind of integrate it into what's going on and think, sort of process and think and like, like, not that you have to necessarily do anything, but that you're capable and ready, but you're not reacting. You're kind of like, you're still engaged with your mind, you're processing. It doesn't change affect you unless you decide to necessarily? Or maybe somebody wants to start a fight with you and like how you handle that and what your options are. Like someone's up on you for some reason. And like, what do you do? How do you handle that? Can you just walk away or do you have to like puff up? And anyway, but engaging your brain, your body, mind, and spirit, just being like prepared
Yeah.
and capable, remaining perpetually capable versus here's a problem, everyone react to it,
Right.
and then that becomes an outcome that you lost control of or that
Right. Yeah.
you made a bad decision about. But
Yeah. That's exactly right. Like that is that's a perfect way to put it. Is like it's when we're talking about being prepared, right? It's about your ability to react appropriately to varying pressures and varying situations and varying ecological systems, right? And so it's like I see a lot of people will prepare for like, oh, if I was in a extreme survival situation, right? So they spend a lot of time like learning about tracking and like boiling water and starting fires and all that kind of stuff. All great skills. But I also see other people that will prepare for things like material dependence, right? They'll go, okay, well, I need to have batteries for my CPAP and my lamps, and I need to have a radio for this, and I need to have 2 years of canned food. And you go, okay, well, that's preparing for material outcome that you may or may not experience, right? But there's nothing wrong with it. Like it's still a valuable exercise. And then there are people that prepare for like, okay, well, what if I get in a fight? I need to be prepared for that. So I'm going to go and prepare for whatever that is. But in terms of like even things like that example you just gave, like I actually experienced that on the golf course in town.
right.
These two guys, it was actually four guys. There was two groups and they were fighting like right in front of me. Like I was waiting to tee off and these guys were arguing and fussing about something. And so I drove the cart down just to see what was going on. And, it was like these two white guys and these two Hispanic guys, and they're arguing about the pace of play and so they were shoving each other and, go ahead and hit me and this and that. And I'm like, oh, brother, like you guys are like 50 years old. What are you doing out here?
Maybe there was alcohol involved.
Probably. I mean, almost inevitably, right? But the one guy shoved the other guy and he fell backwards into his cart. And as he sprang up out of the cart, he clocked the dude and knocked him out cold within one shot, right? And I was like, oh, boy. And that guy just literally just boom, like face planted right on the grass. And that guy went and jumped on his back and he was rearing back and he's just going to start wailing on this dude while he's unconscious. And without even thinking about it,
You're supposed to get your camera out and just stand there and record the whole thing.
Well, I didn't. What happened was I went, stop right now. And I ran over and I hooked the guy's arm. And I was like, you're not doing that. That guy's down. He's done. That's enough. This is over right now. Get up, move. And that guy was looking at me like, what the hell are you doing? Right. And then these other two guys were wrestling over here and I'm like yelling at him, like, stop fighting right now. Stop it. And I was just like,
Daddy
what am I doing?
Well,
but it was all that like correction shit, right? Like I was just like, why am I in the middle of this? Why am I not just filming this? I should be the guy with the phone just like, oh, check it out. World star, baby. Yeah. But I'm like, why am I interjecting myself in this at all? Like, and a huge risk to myself because all it would have taken was that one guy to look at me and go, what are you doing? You want some too? And, and next thing you know, I'm going to be rolling around with somebody, maybe. But but the point is that reaction, like you said, there's a lot of people, I've seen it in prison settings. They just go, oh, there's a fight. There's a fight. And like, I've literally been standing next to someone going like, yeah, that's your job. Like, that's the thing you need to go deal with. Right. Like, it's not enough to just go, oh my God, look, it's like, you have an extra role here, which is go intervene, go make that stop, go make it call for some help. You can't just go like, fight, so
yeah.
But it's that exposure to those kinds of different environments, those different pressures, those things are all tempering. And a life is like steel, right? If it is untempered steel, it's weak and it's fragile and it's brittle. And I argue that any human being, if you want to be able to be capable and prepared for whatever is to come, you need to temper your steel. You need to challenge your thinking. You need to challenge your awareness of things. You need to challenge the positions you put yourself in. You need to challenge your physical body and your physical being, your physical capabilities. You need to test your endurance. And you don't have to be a lunatic about it. These can all be fun things. Like you can go on a long hike. You can climb to the top of a mountain. You can do burpees. You can push your physical limits. You can go and study some jujitsu or some boxing. because those are all pressure situations that you're not going to be familiar with. But once you've dealt with them in a controlled environment, you go, okay, I know where my shortcomings are. I know the things I should probably focus on to get more prepared. And I know the limits of like what I'm even capable of at all. Right. So it's that kind of thing. But to me, that's also fun, right? You go like, well, I'm not just sitting around like doing the Mart loop to buy 50 rounds of ammunition every Tuesday because I know that's when the shipment shows up. You're actually doing things that on the other side of that, you also get mental benefits of like, oh, well, I feel more confident. I feel more capable. I feel calmer. I'm reducing all my stress hormones. Like all the stressors and all the what if things start mattering less because you go, well, but I know I'm capable. I know I'm comfortable. I have comfort with skill at arms. I've learned how to shoot and handle weapons. I have comfort in physical confrontation because I've practiced that and trained that. I have comfort in physically demanding situations because I've practiced and trained with that. I know what it's like to be in deprivation situations because I've done like fasting and things like that. So you can see all these different little things that make you prepared and make you capable. And then you couple that with access to inalienable property and you go, oh, I'm a pretty powerful person right now. I maybe I'm not going to survive like a bomb attack. I might get smoked in some firefight or something like that. Doesn't mean variance doesn't happen. But as a core baseline, you can kind of go, well, a lot of this stuff isn't going to matter because the outcomes are going to be the outcomes, whatever they are. I don't have any control over the outcome of Hormuz or Iran or Ukraine or whether or not that escalates to World War III or whether or not it became this or that or if the monetary system is going to collapse or not. Like, I have no say in any of that stuff. I have no ability to impact any of that stuff. And I have no way to really years after the event that you have to be prepared for. And if you're prepared physically, emotionally, and in your actual capacity as a human being, all of that stuff gets easier to navigate regardless of the outcome, right?
Mm-hmm.
And if you have that that little piece of property, you can also retain some of the dignity that a lot of people are going to be missing. And that's my little takeaway for this big kind of long conversation.
Yeah, my feeling I just was having about it was like watching a war go on and the media around it. It's like watching a fight. And so naturally, a lot of people are like, all the things. And after my first few fights at the jail,
right.
And after some years, it'd be like something like that happens that for like the rookie who's on is like, oh God, and they come out of it and they got to like really reconcile, like, yeah, all the things. And I'd be weirdly like unimpressed and just kind of like, oh, okay. Oh, those guys are fighting. Well, I'll get my taser ready. I'll take in the scene. I'm thinking I may have to tell a guy, hey, stay where you're at, or you go there. And then you more procedurally like interface with it versus like, oh God, all monkeys rush in,
Right.
And so anyway, war is like that where everybody's kind of like, there could be like watching a movie and something like a horror movie where something builds up and then and my mom or my wife or a friend will jump and go, oh my gosh. And something like there's something short circuit in my brain now from all the abuse from career stuff where like that can happen in my immediate senses might be like, oh, like that was a shock. And then I'm just kind of like, huh. And I don't like react and the whole audience jumps and I'm just kind of going, well, I could have seen that coming, I guess. But it's just funny. I in the academy, like, okay, you're gonna go in a dark room, you can't see anything, put this thing on your head, and you're standing there, it's quiet, and they're like, you ready? And you're like, I guess. And then you get knocked along the side of the head and you see stars, and your emotions come up, and then you come out of that and you're like, okay, that's how it feels like to get hit when you're not expecting it.
Yeah.
And then I don't know. Anyway, it's like training though, but so like tempering yourself. Temper your life's steel. And then with Bitcoin having that other base of you feel that base, you're tempering your life. And then what is it, young man, that is hard for you or that you can't do or that you can't feel flexible about? And
yeah, work on what you can. Yeah,
be more capable.
Yeah, be more capable. I mean, I think that tempering is key for everything. I don't know if you remember that Iceman guy. They found him in a cave, and he was apparently 75 years old and had an arrow stuck in him, right? So who knows what led up to this guy being in a cave with an arrow stuck in his shoulder, but it apparently
Otzi.
killed him.
I think they called him Otzi.
Yeah, Otzi, I think so. But the thing is, if you look at the reconstruction of the guy, he's 74 years old, but that guy was shredded, man. He was like yoked, you know. And I mean, who knows how well they reconstructed him or not, but the guy was very well preserved. So, but the thing is, if you look at that guy and you go, well, if he didn't take that arrow, how much longer did he have? Because he was shredded. He was 74 years old. He was clearly a very capable human being. But he was a very well-tempered human being. He was very well adapted to survival conditions at the time, which were apparently pretty harsh because he ended up with an arrow in his shoulder, right? So
he was going through something. Yeah, he was
yeah.
he was crossing the mountains between a couple of villages or something.
Yeah. So if you think about like the capability of that guy compared to like a modern human, and especially like some office guy who's that dude. But I mean, if you find the reconstruction of him, like what the artist's rendering of what they think he looked like, there is one view of it where it was kind of like, I mean, pretty dope shoes, right?
Yeah,
but
he was was it
kind of a
Bronze
stud,
Age?
man. Yeah. So yeah, he's a pretty rugged dude.
Maybe it's this guy.
Yeah, there you go. But I mean that, you know, if you look at that guy, you go, I wouldn't want to mess with that guy. But if you also look at him and go, he looks a lot closer to a homeless guy than he does to to a guy that works at the office at IBM. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's amazing to think about that life where.
Oh, I thought it was his 70s. I would have sworn I read somewhere that they thought he was in his like he was 74. Maybe it was 45 or 55.
Yeah, tough dude, but probably.
Well, how old
average.
Was he?
Who knows? But yeah, it's pretty interesting. Yeah, so I think about life then, life now. How we, basically we've gotten soft. So, yeah.
Oh yeah, 45, 46. You're right. Yeah, I don't know where I got 70 from. He still looks pretty good for 45. Better than a lot of 45-year-olds I know.
Yeah, lean and sinuous, ripped, I guess.
Yeah.
But so like, yeah, ideas being that he was traveling with winter coming and maybe got caught up in a snowstorm or something, but didn't quite make it over the hills.
Yeah.
So,
it made it right in front of an arrow.
and yeah, he had injuries, but had lived a life. Man, well, so my endeavoring is to focus my time and energy towards based thriving change is what I've kind of been thinking about. And so for me, that's simple things, bit of diet stuff, bit of motion exercise stuff, and mental framing on war at large stuff or whatever is grinding in the world, and just stepping back and being like, I'm still based. I'm still tempering myself. So being ready.
Well, yeah, I mean, I think it's a healthy place to be, honestly, because like I said, you know, what am I going to do about Russia? Like, I can't call Putin and be like, hey, bud, you know, this is kind of messing with my portfolio this week. Do you think you could maybe back off the Ukraine thing? And then he listens and goes, yeah, you know what? You're right, Dan. Sorry. Yeah, I'll talk to the guys and see if we can pull the tanks back, right? Like, it's just not going to happen. So geopolitics, you know, the things I have no impact on, it's like, well, why am I gonna worry about it, right? Like, why fret about something I literally have zero impact on? I can just be aware of it and go, oh, that might turn into a thing, maybe. Like, but what benefit does that give me? Does it?
It always has been. It's the meme of the spaceman with the gun. It's like, oh shit, this, and it's like, always has been this. Always has been.
Yeah,
always has been.
Nothing different, nothing new here. But what hasn't changed for the last 25,000 years is like being physically capable, being emotionally prepared, being mentally tough. You know, those things are as close to a constant as you can get. And if you're rugged, like you could pluck one of the members of the Hazda tribe, you could pluck him out of his tribe, plunk him down right in the middle of almost anywhere. He's going to do just fine.
Yeah.
You take me and plunk me down in the middle of a war zone, I'm going to struggle right now, guaranteed. You know? So that's the difference. But they're physically, emotionally, and mentally capable, and they have a range of skills that they are honed and adapted to. Right, their ability to thrive in a harsh environment is like far superior to mine. It would probably take me 2 years of dedicated effort to get anywhere near where they're at, but that doesn't mean I can't be closer to it than, you know, like I think if I got plunked and set down in the middle of the Hazda tribe right now, I'd probably do better than the last HR person I knew. You know, I mean, maybe not, but
No,
you
I
know,
think my fiat job and how sedentary, well, between sitting here at the computer or going to work and sitting at a computer or feeling tired when I get home and reading a book and sitting and reading a book, I got to balance all these things. And back in the day, what did you do all day? You walked around, you walked, you carried stuff, you lifted stuff, you moved stuff, you crouched and squatted, and you got up and you moved, and you crouched and squatted, and you were moving all freaking day, and your day might just be a normal day would be a hike.
Yeah.
So
yeah. Well, on that note, I think we've solved all the problems. So
a tempered life, everybody. Live a tempered life. Forge your steel on Bitcoin and
burpees,
burpees. Bitcoin and burpees.
And boxing. Do a little boxing and wrestling. Wrestle, box, you know, maybe do some gymnastics.
My little daughter, she's so physical and active and busy, and she'll just all day, she'll just be doing her normal life things, running around, playing up and down, swinging on the trampoline, and everything is, Dad, come on, Dad, come on, Dad. And so she's leading me around in my life. And it's the funniest stuff that I'll just trying to keep up with a 4-year-old. And I'll be like, after, you know, not even an hour, but like a half hour, 15 minutes on the trampoline. Sometimes I'm like, okay, Daddy's an old man. Yeah. I don't know if you know that, but she's just like going and she's falling and tumbling and rolling around and jumping and up and down. And I'm like,
Yeah. I need a stent.
This is our Saturday Homo Club.
It's Homo sapiens, the Homo sapien Club. Yeah. It's always great to see you, Johnny.
Yeah.
And thank you everybody for joining. Bream, it was a pleasure to meet you today. And bring facts if you're still here. It's good to see you, sir.
Yeah. Good for tuning in. Thanks, everybody. We solve the world's problems every Saturday.
Oh, yeah. Travis, you still here?
Where is Travis?
Did he bail? Anyway, have a great day, everybody.
Travis is here. Travis is here to say goodbye, everybody.
Bye.
Oh, let me play the thing. Hey, Travis. Hey, listen to the enjoy our long form self-custody based life plan. Here you go, everybody. Bye, MicroSeed. Yo, as a Bitcoiner, you know that taking self-custody is critically important. But if you've ever had a seed phrase, you've probably had it written down on something kind of like this. Sure, you can hide it or secure it, but paper burns, paper fades, paper gets wet, paper rots, paper blows in the wind, paper has things written on it that might look important. So get off paper and get yourself a MicroSeed at microseed.io. MicroSeed is the best way to take self-custody. Secure the most important property in the world that you own on titanium. And with promo code FRITZ, you'll get 5% off your order. One single MicroSeed kit allows you to stamp as many seed phrases as you want. And you can fit all 12 or 24 words on one single washer. Get the kit and crank out all the keys you'll ever need forever. You can even go down to the hardware store and buy your own washers by the bag or the box and crank out as many as you want. Go nuts. You can also go to microseed.io to get any extra washers you need, including stainless steel, nylon, or even titanium washers. So check this out. You put your washer in here, you set the table, you grab your punches, and you tap, click, tap, stamp whatever you want. However you want it, it's tiny but clean and aligned. Your obscure little washer is indestructible, and you can hide it anywhere. Use your imagination. MicroSeed comes with stainless steel washers, a titanium washer, and even a nylon washer. Think of metal detectors or having to travel through security.
Depth scanners cannot read this. Go to microseed.io and use promo code FRITZ to get 5% off the best seed stamping tool available. Get there today and get yourself squared away.